Hey there, this is Shyam here, International B2B SEO Consultant. And today I want to touch upon a topic that is less spoken about, but has a pretty substantial effect on your performance on search, right? And this is slightly technical. However, this video is made for marketers. It is for CMOs and people in senior marketing positions who can understand what needs to be done. So it's with that context in mind. So I will not be using too much jargon, and you will be able to understand what this is about, right? The topic I want to talk about is something called as web vitals. Now, I'm sure at some point you would have seen a report of sorts called Page Speed Insights. Now, I'll just share my screen and show you how this report looks like. What you see on the screen is a page speed insight of apple.com, right? And you would notice that it has something called as core web vitals assessment, and it says failed, right? For desktop, it has passed, right? Now, before we get into all of this, let's understand what problem are we tackling here. Now, imagine Google has to scan through trillions of websites, right? And it has to understand which website has a good user experience and which one doesn't. Now, how do you quantify that? User experience is a very subjective term. Now, Google has figured out a way to do that using something called as web vitals. So it measures certain aspects of a website to understand, hey, okay, this is if a website satisfies all these things, then it has a good user experience and people will be able to access it properly. Now, there are many web vitals, but there are 3 of them which are considered core or fundamental, right? And it tackles 3 aspects of user experience. First is loading, how fast it loads and all of that. Second is interactivity, right? How interactive is the website? How much time it takes for a user or a visitor to interact with the website. And the third is visual stability. And I'll get to all of these things, but visual stability basically means that, sometimes when you load a website, you'll see that something comes here, an element, an image or something like that, a button maybe. And then as it loads, this moves, the element moves up or down or sideways and so on. So it analyzes these 3 aspects: loading, interactivity, and visual stability, right? How does it do that? Let's go through it briefly. I will attach a blog so that you will be able to get the details of what it is and all that. That blog will get into more details, like it will have some technical aspects as well. But let's look at loading. So this is loading, this is loading, this is interactivity, and this is visual stability, right? So let's start with loading, right? So loading is straightforward. It looks at whatever the largest piece of your website is on your homepage, how long it takes to load, right? And that determines your loading speed. Now, Google says that based on its analysis, anything less than 2.5 seconds is good, right? And anything between 2.5 and 4 is okay, average. Anything greater than 4 is poor, right? So it checks how long it takes for you to for the largest element to load, and that's called LCP, largest contentful page, right? Straightforward. How do you optimize for this? Well, if you have an image or a video that is loading, make sure that it's not too heavy, right? Reduce the size of the image. By size, I mean the number of bytes, how big is the file, right? Make sure that you ask the tech team, hey, make it load faster, right? I don't need such a large image on my hero section of the page, the first section of the page, and so on, right? You could do all that. Okay. Second, interaction to next paint. Interaction to next paint is that, when you see a button or a CTA, when you click on it, how long it takes for you to know that, hey, there was some interaction that has happened, right? So I'm sure you would have seen that there are certain buttons when you hover over it, it changes color or a different shade, or when you click on it, it will change the color, and then you know that, oh, it has been clicked, right? That's important because that's a feedback for the user that you have clicked it, right? Imagine a website where there is a pay now, there's no color change in the button, you just keep clicking multiple times and it gets, your money gets deducted multiple times. That's not good, right? That's a bad user experience. So Google checks that, Google, and gives a value to it. It says that anything less than 200 milliseconds is good, anything between 200 and 500 is okay, and anything greater than 500 milliseconds is bad, right? So checking for this particular URL, which means it is checking apple.com, right, the home page, but you can also do the same thing for a bunch of pages or in any particular page if you want to check. But the point is that if it has a button or CTA, there has to be some kind of a feedback to the user that it has been clicked. That's interaction to next paint, right? So that's INP. Again, if you have, how do you use that? Go to your tech team, do this check on PageSpeed Insights. It's a free tool, and see if your INP is below 200 milliseconds. If not, to work on that, right? Cumulative layout shift. Now, this is what I talked about, like, visual stability. It should not move too much, right? Now, this score is like a ratio. That's why you have like this 0.1, 0.1 to 0.25, and so on. So it's harder to understand how this is measured. There is a way, it's a formula, so it's quite straightforward. It's not something that that's difficult, but as a marketer, you don't need to kind of know the formula and stuff, but just make sure that if your visual elements are moving too much, like it takes time to load and then one loads and then it goes down and then another image or an element comes up and all that, you tell your tech team that, hey, this page is moving too much, and try to make sure that the elements load in one shot, or you remove certain elements which is taking too long to load, right? That's called CLS, cumulative layout shifts. Basically, the way this is measured is that, let's say you have a screen, this is 0 to 100, and if it moves 25%, that's 0.25, right? It has moved from the top. It was earlier at the top, and then it moved down by 25%. So that's how it measures it. Basically, the percentage by which the shifts happen. So you reduce that. As a marketer, you just have to go to your tech team. Hey, you need to fix the layout shift. All right. Summarizing, you don't have to remember all these things. Just remember three things. It is about loading speed. It is about how quickly the interactivity happens with the website for the visitor. And third is the layout shift, the visual stability. So loading, interactivity, and visual stability. And I explained to you how this is measured by Google. So if you pass, and they measure it separately for mobile and desktop. So you might, like, for example, in this case, Apple passes the desktop test but fails the mobile test. This can also change the, if I run it multiple times, it might give a different result. So in this example, this is exactly 2.5, right? And you see this is marked as orange, right? So everything else is green. So they are almost close to passing the test. So it's not like a terrible score for Apple, but it'll be a good idea to test it on your website and see what happens. There are more web vitals, like the ones that you see below, like first contentful paint, time to first byte, and all of that. I've written all that in my blog. I would suggest that you read the blog and you'll understand all these things, or send it across to your technical team. The blog also contains the links to the Google documentation, highly technical, but it's for the tech team to read and understand what it is about, and so on. I hope this helps. That this was like a short, important topic that I wanted to talk about, because it's often ignored and people think that this is not that important. It is, and it's very straightforward. It's not that it's not super complicated. I hope you like this video. I'll see you in the next one.